Good morning and welcome to my blog, Wisdom for Today. And today I want to talk to you about the contract of faith. The reason I thought of that subject is this morning, as I woke up, I had an occasion to think about faith being a contract between us and God. What was happening this morning was that our condo association was changing the facade in front of my townhouse. And so there was a lot of banging going on, tearing away the old facade to put a new one on. And my cat was in hysterics. At first, she jumped up on my lap and meowed as loud as she could. And then she ran downstairs and came up to try to get me again and looked over her shoulder like, "You need to get down here." But of course, I didn't go down there. The banging was loud and it was disrupting to my morning, but I realized I was safe because I had a contract with the individuals taking down the facade and the condo association to put up a new facade, and that gave me a sense of peace. You know, when the Apostle Paul talks about faith being the substance of things hoped for, being the evidence of things not seen, the word he uses for hope for is the word that means contract. In fact, it's entitled or deed. Now, Paul gets to this sermon in Hebrews chapter 11 after making a long case to his readers that we are of faith. We're not of working our own salvation. We're not of apostasy that says that we look into pagan gods, but we are of faith in Jesus Christ. So he's made this long case that we can't earn ourselves to heaven. And now he's going to make the case of, but this is the faith that we are. This is the stuff that faith is made of. And the first thing that faith is made of is this contract, this covenant between me and God. It's a covenant that he talks about in Romans chapter 8, when he talks about us being predestined, when he talks about that nothing could separate us from the love of God in Jesus Christ. We have an agreement, an expectation, but it's not an expectation based upon sentiment and high feelings. It's an expectation based upon a covenant. So first of all, faith is the expectation, the covenant, the expectation of hope in a covenant that God's going to fulfill. The second thing is what we translate as the evidence of things not seen. The Greek word is really closer to proof or conviction of things not seen. And those are the same word. To prove something and to have conviction was the same word in the Greek. So there's this sense of proof that God will prove himself again and again and again. And in the Hebrews chapter 11, Paul mentions all these people who went through great hardship and God kept them. It's called the chapter of the heroes of the faith. And we learn about Isaiah, and we learn about Rahab, and we learn about the prophets and people who, because of God's call, had to endure hardship, but God was faithful to them. What I like about this chapter in Hebrews chapter 11 and all the verses within that chapter is that it reminds me that my faith is not just individual, it's communal. What do I mean by that? Well, faith being the substance of things hoped for, the contract that God made with me, being the evidence of things not seen, the proof of things not seen. I may go through a time where I would say, well, God, you haven't proved your love to me. Everybody goes through that occasionally. But when I go through those days, I can look around me and say, but you did prove you did prove your love to this person, and this person, and this person. Because my faith isn't just about Cheryl Kincaid. My faith is about all of Christianity, 2,000 years of Christian testimony that God is faithful. And I need to look outside myself at other people's testimonies when I'm feeling low or when I'm feeling like things won't turn out well. That's why church history is important. But it's also why in your small group Bible studies that you listen to other people's testimonies and you don't base your faith completely on what happened to you, but also on what God does with other people. That's the great joy of Christianity. Christianity was meant to live in community for that reason, because we not only testify to what God's doing in our lives, but what he's doing in other people's life. And when we see God's unseen hand working out his goodwill in other people's lives, we can truly say that faith is the expectation, the contract of things hoped for. It's the evidence, it's the proof of things that we can't see. We can't see his hand, but we certainly see his works in the world. As you enjoy your summer day this week and the following weeks, I pray that you'll remember what the handles are on faith. The handles of faith that God gives you, and those handles are two things. It's the contract he gives you in the Word of God and the proof of his hand in the world. I hope to see you on church this Sunday and maybe on Wednesday night at the prayer meeting or at another group. God's blessings and have a wonderful day.